viewer, welcome to today's episode of Health Talk Show. We are still continuing with our discussion on mental health, and today we are talking about suicide. We've heard it, we've seen it, we've witnessed it, but today we are going to go through it in a discussion, and I am sure you're going to enjoy the show. I'm your host, Lucy Wansakariuki, and today I have a beautiful guest in the house who is going to take us through mental health under the subtopic of suicide prevention. We celebrated it last month, and she is going to help us to undergo it. Kindly welcome to the show and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Lucy. My name is Kibe. I'm a counselor with the Kenya Institute of Professional Counseling, and apart from that, I work with the Phoenix Hub. It's a foundation that we work in schools, creating mental wellness and leadership programs within our country.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I also understand you are the founder.
Yes, I am.
Good job.
Thank you.
Kindly take us through suicide. What is it?
Suicide.
Yes.
It's a scary topic. And it's a taboo to many of us. We don't want to talk about it.
Yes.
But basically we can define suicide as that attempted action of taking one's life, deliberately, if I would say. And in some instances, the sad instance is that some people who attempt to take their lives, they succeed. And there are others who just attempt and they fail.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically what we can call suicide is that attempted voluntary action of taking one's life.
Killing oneself.
Killing oneself.
Yes.
Yes.
How is it globally, nationally,
Globally, nationally.
regionally? Is
Yes.
it real? Is it there? Or is it in books?
It is a global pandemic.
Yes.
The
Pandemic.
Yes, it is a global pandemic. It's not something that the rich will say they are not facing. It's not something the poor will say they are not facing.
Yes.
And just like last time when we were talking, we said mental wellness does not choose. Also suicide instantly does not choose who it targets or who becomes a victim of it. Because like the World Health Organization has declared that the numbers this year have skyrocketed to over 700 annually for the people who have been committing suicide. And in Kenya, I think this year the nation recorded close to over 400 cases.
Yes.
That people who have committed suicide. But the number may seem big, but there has been some reports which indicate that, unlike other years, this year with the COVID coming in, the number of suicide has decreased. So maybe that can be explained with whether maybe we are winning the war against suicide. That can be one way of looking at it.
Yes.
That our action in the grassroots and
Sensitization.
yes, that word has left my tongue. Yes, creating campaigns against mobilization against suicide has worked. Or number two is that people have found a new meaning of life. When COVID came, the number of deaths was scary. You could hear millions dying by hours. And I think maybe that sent a signal to our heads, and it's like, hey, this life is sacred. We need to preserve it. Or maybe the numbers that are being reported are being swallowed up by the numbers being caused by COVID. But the most positive thing I want to look at is that we are winning this war.
Yes.
Because the numbers have decreased globally and also nationally. Yes.
You say that it is taking one's life.
Yes.
You said some people succeed.
Yes.
And others don't.
Yes.
Which means if you don't succeed, that is attempted.
Yes.
If you succeed, death.
It's fatal.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that. At least now we are somewhere. We understand that suicide is is something that happens. It's not just data.
Yes.
It's not just a theory.
It's not a myth.
Yes.
Yes.
When you say that people attempt, which means they plan, does it have flashlights? Like you can guess, so and so could commit suicide tomorrow, so that now we can be able to prevent.
Well,
we are sanitizing to prevent COVID.
Yes.
And we know that if you go shaking hands with people, we can suspect you for COVID.
Yes.
Because we can maybe say you are at risk of it. You said also it does not discriminate the rich, the poor.
Yes.
It's in an equal world. So what can we do? What can we sense that it could be able to happen to somebody?
The thing with suicide, it's not just something someone wakes up and decides, I'm going to kill myself today. This is something that has been premeditated. And by premeditating, this is something someone has been planning, thinking, going through it in their head, over and over, creating scenarios, laying down on the table the means at which they're going to carry out the suicide, and actually now going to that point of actually doing the act itself, that is committing suicide. And when you ask me, can we tell someone is about? The beauty about suicide, Lucy, is those clues. That's the sad reality and the beauty about it. They tell something is amiss. But as usual, we choose to ignore. You see changes in patterns of the way these people have been associating. Sometimes if someone has been going through depression and they have been recoiled, suddenly you can see someone who just decides to start being overjoyed about everything and everyone, talking to people. They may start organizing their things, like, you know, I kept this piece of shamba here, there's a document there. There's a language and there's a manner of behavior. They now start acting up different from how they have been in their depressed state. And this, if you're keen enough, you'll be able to ask yourself question, why the sudden change of attitude or mood? Why is he talking in such a manner? Why is he always saying goodbyes or writing letters or visiting everybody all of a sudden? Maybe someone who has never even visited you, and all of a sudden they come and tell you, I decided to come and visit you today. And this is someone, you know, they have been going through issues and they have not been talking. So some of those are the red flags that we ignore. And then we may be assuming that they are coming out of it. And then the next minute, that's why you always hear and say, tulikuwa na yeye hapa. Tumeachana tu sahi, amejiua aje. But you did not see that pattern coming. The pattern is there, the telltale signs are there, but it's only that we overlook them. So it is possible, if you're keen enough, to see someone who is walking towards suicide.
Yes.
Yes.
And why do you think that people don't read these red flags?
Wow. We are in a society whereby I think it's everybody for himself.
God for us all.
God for us all.
Oh my goodness.
And especially right now, during these difficult times, there are people, especially from where I come from, by vernacular, we say, be thinned by yours. Your troubles are your troubles. My troubles are my trouble. So you may find that someone, like now, I may suspect. Let me tell you a very good example, which is a bad example. I have a neighbor and they moved. And they were just directly opposite me. And I have never known how they looked like. I've never even knocked on their door to ask,
oh my goodness,
how are you doing? You see, that is now how we ignore people. They did not commit suicide. I'm just giving an example of how we ignore people. We don't want to be associated with other people. So the moment we become so engrossed and entitled to our own welfare, not minding about the other person's welfare, not wanting to know when they're going through difficulties, how are they negotiating, how are they feeling. If someone had told you about a stressing situation and all of a sudden they recoil, they don't want to talk about it, or you see a friend of yours on Facebook or social media, they are commenting some funny comments that indicate they are tired, they are giving up, and you really don't want to follow up on them, or even asking a simple question, are you okay?
Yes.
That's why we don't see it. It's not that we don't see it, we ignore the fact that we have seen it.
Yes.
And also I think that fear of wanting to be associated with people's problems and you do not know whether you can be able to offer a solution. And we forget a problem half spoken about
is solved.
Is solved halfway. So when you speak to someone, you may not necessarily offer that help they need, but you can be able at least to extend that time span, If they were, for instance, if you are depressed today and I come and talk to you and I give you some hope, maybe you are deciding I'll commit suicide today, but you think Mercy gave me some hope, maybe we can postpone for 1 month and see whether it works. If
you
it
add
doesn't,
life to your days.
you are extending that lifespan and the distance between this time this person can commit suicide or not. Why? Because you spoke hope to them. So it's not that we do not see. We choose to ignore, to see what we are seeing.
So in a way, maybe we blame the society or something like that.
We are all part of the blame game.
Yes.
All of us. Nobody can say they are okay.
Yes.
Yes. And sometimes we offer unlogical solutions.
Yeah.
Unlogical, unrealistic expectation and solutions that don't seem to work for any person who is going through suicide.
Depending on different people.
And different circumstances and situations that they are going through.
Now, there is this person who now becomes our target.
Yes.
For us now to label suicide.
Yes.
That particular person, what signs and symptoms can we read from them? And can they also be able to realize that anytime I might kill myself?
As I said, suicide is premeditated.
Yes.
This person committing suicide, this is a plan. It's like a strategy they have drawn. I'll go, I'll take a rope, I'll wait for everybody to sleep, then I'll sneak out in the wee hours of the dark. And then I'll go and hang myself when I expect nobody to be there to rescue me. So now, when this person is planning all this, it's that this person has come to an end of seeing any hope or any way out. We say they are selfish when they commit suicide.
Yes.
But in their head, they are looking for a quick way to end their suffering. Assuming it's someone who has a chronic disease and they are seeing that all family money is going towards them, they may think that committing suicide is an easy way of helping the family members stop spending money on them. So for them, it's a quick fix for what they are going through.
To them, it's a solution.
It's a solution.
They're trying to end something and begin another.
They're trying to solve themselves liberate themselves from the pain, at the same time liberate the family from the pain of spending too much money from them. And so now, when also now this person has already planned all this, there are people who are so secretive and they'll just leave a note. There are those people who just decide to go without a note. But even you, the person who is staying with that person, you start seeing some behavior changes. As I mentioned earlier, you see mood swings and different mood changes. For instance, a person who has been depressed, in most cases, depressed people don't talk. They recoil back from the society. They don't want to be seen in crowds. But all of a sudden, with no explanation, this person decides to come out. And when you listen to their talk, if you're keen enough to listen to how they're talking, you can see notes of maybe thank you, appreciating people for the sacrifices they have done. They are giving cues of how hard life is and how hopeless it is. They may be giving you signals like, I think death is a good solution. They're trying to beautify death and to show how death is good and part of a solution to what they are going through. And there are others who also now start putting their house in order, like saying goodbye, giving out quotes. There's always some form of organization that comes in. And they're trying to see that now I'm running my strategy. Assuming you're with such a person or a teenager, and she comes and tells you, hey mom, nowadays naona life ni ngumu, lakini watu wenye wamekufa hawananga shida. You need to start asking yourself,
why such a talk?
Why such a talk? Yeah. And then someone will ask you, what is the point of living? Is there even hope for this life? If you are so keen in their conversation, you can tell details that are not adding up to what this person is saying. So it is very clear, and we ignore them, and unless you're keen, you cannot tell, and you may miss. Even us, sometimes as counselors, if you're not keen enough to do a screening, like now someone who also has done self-harm. Self-harm in the sense of they are starting to cut themselves, they are plucking their hair, all of a sudden they are refusing food, they don't want to eat, they have stopped taking care of themselves, they have become disorganized, untidy, they don't want anything that pertains. You know, there's a way you do your things and shows there's hope for life. And the way you just relax and pull back and you show people totally, I I have no intention of leaving. So some of these things are things which now start to communicate to us some of those deep meaning. And in most cases, especially for teenagers who commit suicide, someone will tell you, it's a phase. They just want to be untidy. Or they just don't want to read. They want to stay locked up in their room. And then the next morning, you're going to that room and you find your child is hanging.
He's dead.
So, and then you start going back to your mind and telling yourself, I saw this. I had this. Why did I not? Why did I not piece it together? So there are ways that you can tell someone is walking in towards it, because it is not something they just wake up and do it.
Are there some cases whereby you can just, maybe because of something sudden, even if they are rare, no, you had never thought of committing suicide, but something just happens like now and now, and you feel like, no, this is too much for me? Are there special cases we can say this was not pre-planned?
Wow, I believe there are some cases. I believe there are some cases there. For instance, someone just comes and decides to shoot us, all of us here. And then, at that spur of the moment, what did I do? And then they turn the gun on themselves.
Okay.
Was it premeditated?
No.
You may never know. Maybe, because there's no note that has been left. But someone just decided to come and shoot all of us and turn the gun on themselves. You can never really tell what happened to them. And also there are people who just are like, especially, it's very rare for me to hear people who just woke up and decided to kill themselves. Unless they have been so secretive. But in normal cases, especially maybe in cases of crime, you see there are those crimes when they, in the spur of the moment, at that moment of insanity, they committed that crime. And then immediately after that, insanity moment passes, someone comes to the realization, what did I do? And they turn their weapon against themselves. Because now they have come to the realization of what they have done. Those are very rare cases whereby you hear someone just decided to wake up and kill themselves. But in other cases, people plan. And also in this planning, sometimes the plan backfires.
Sure.
That's why we say attempted suicide.
And not succeeded.
It did not succeed. So you find these people are taken to the emergency rooms. And they are trying to be given first aid or being referred to psychiatry. But the danger with these people who attempt suicide, don't be so comfortable thinking because they succeeded in not attempting once, it will be the case. In many instances, they still come back
to repeat
and attempt it again until they succeed, unless they are given professional psychiatric help.
Wow.
Yes. And in these instances, they are called for hospitalization. Yeah. You just don't, a suicide case is not someone who just let them walk freely. If someone has attempted suicide, they need to be medicated, they need to be in a hospital, being taken care of throughout. Yes.
Wow. So sometimes it's not all about that particular thing. We again go back to the mind.
Yes.
Which needs now to be organized.
Oh, yes.
Because as you said in our previous discussion,
yes,
you really took us through a few things about the mind. It needs to be put in order.
Yes. Because
it can also get sick. This could be a sick person.
Yes, and it is true, because now when we're talking about suicide, we are going back again to your mental wellness.
Yeah.
What are the triggers?
Yes.
There has to be a trigger that is pushing you to this point of wanting to end life.
You talked of depression, you talked of illnesses,
stress, anxiety, broken marriages. There are people who have just gone through a broken marriage or a nasty divorce, and they are feeling they don't want. We go back again to childhood experiences. You find many of teenagers, sometimes statistics show that some of these teenagers who commit suicide, maybe they have had cases of abuse or mistreatment or rough childhood, and they don't feel they are able to cope with some of these memories that keep on reoccurring.
Yes.
And then the challenge comes in now when they don't see as if life is becoming better than what they had previously. It's like a reincarnation of that bad life, and it keeps repeating no matter where I change my environment. So what's the easiest way for me? Let me end it. But it is not a solution. But it's sad that many people end life. And it's very sad. As in, life is sacred. You just don't wake up one morning.
Yeah. And end it.
Yes.
In short, you can say what you can give, don't take.
And I'll surprise you, Lucy. It's only that people, even in this room, if we were to ask them, it's only that people cannot admit. At some point, that instant of, or I end it, always crosses people's mind. Majority of the people, the highest percentage, 90 plus. But the difference
that
now,
one now, yes.
The difference comes in now with the actualizing bit of it. You see, it's just a thought. It just crossed your mind. You can choose for that thought to indwell you, and now it starts becoming a reality. You see, now you have spoken to yourself about suicide. I thought about suicide, and every time I'm faced with difficulty and this thing is not going, let me end it. And now that conversation and that voice starts becoming so prone in your head. End it, end it, end it.
Suicidal ideation.
Yes. Now you even start seeing, you see, I'll just take my car and drive through. That will end it. Or I can just go in my bedroom and just cut a wrist. Now you're entertaining that thought in your head. And it's a very nasty thought, because it can become part of you. And now it becomes such a strong voice, because I believe by the time this person now is committing suicide, that voice has become so strong beyond any other rational thought. It becomes your reality, it becomes your solution, it becomes your goal. That is a voice that you choose to listen to. And even when we are dealing with clients who come to us through suicide, attempted suicide, now there's a process now we start taking them, try to refute those irrational thoughts of death, challenging those beliefs that death is good, that killing yourself is good. It's a whole process now of starting to work with this client, because now this is a thought that became now a belief, and this belief now has become part of you, and you don't want to part with it. But at the back of your head, you know it is an irrational thought. So how do you get out of this mess?
How?
Yes.
Tell us how. Elections?
Yes.
We are in a country whereby we have been distorted.
Yes.
By next year, March, April, our candidates will be sitting in for their exam.
Yes.
After being in class for such a short time.
Tell me about it.
I have candidates around me who do not want to hear the mention of KCP, KCSE. They don't want anybody to say that we are waiting for your results. Get into your books. They feel like you're killing me.
Yes.
So, if I may ask, these are ideas.
Yes.
As you said.
Yes.
It was a thought one time.
Yes.
Became part of you.
Yes.
Now you want to make it a reality.
Yes.
How do we help them?
We are talking about counseling this individual who has entertained this belief.
Yes.
There are so many different ways a therapist or a counselor can work with such a person. Because number one, as I said, it's a thought that becomes now an idea, which now becomes a belief. Now you start idolizing and believing. And in reality, it is an irrational belief. Suicide does not solve your problems. In any case, it adds stigma and pain to the people now you leave behind. So there are so many techniques that we can take you through. Number one, first we need you to understand and accept that there is an idea that is working within you that is not really rational. We bring now something called cognitive behavior therapy. We make you understand that the idea that now has become part of your habit or belief is not something that is rational. Because now we're trying to create an environment where it shows you this is what is happening in your head. Your head is saying, kill yourself. Your head is saying, end it. But when I come back to the other environment, it's saying this is not the solution. It's not the solution about it. You cannot go about it. And you have heard outside that everybody's campaigning against suicide, but still this is a thought that is insisting in your head. So first we need to sit down and make you understand, or first try to find a solution between you. You understand that it is not a solution, and it is just a thought, which does not have to be actualized. Then we come and start teaching you how to refute that thought, or how to disconnect yourself. You refute that idea that suicide is bad. You work on that emotion that makes you feel like dying, and then you look for a positive energy to replace with that negative energy that makes you feel that death is a solution. Then after you work with that, now you have worked on this irrational thought and the negative energy. Now we start showing you how it's good to adapt a positive emotion in another different environment, and creating new ideas that counter that negativity that has been working with you. It can be if you have been so much into isolation, then we start encouraging you. Every time you have these irrational thoughts, go out and start talking. Every time a thought tells you suicide is good, you need to speak up and say, no, suicide is not good. Speak it out to your head and say, it is an irrational thought. It should not be so. Refute it. Challenge it. Ask it, if I die, what will I do? How can I leave people eating mandazis where I'm dead in a coffin? No. Challenge that thought and say, no, suicide is not the way. So it is all about behavior change. Getting in touch with yourself and analyzing the emotions and the confusion, the guilt, if at all there are guilt issues you're working on, if at all there are stress issues, there are denial issues, there are anger issues, you bring them all now to the surface. And you say, these are the things that are bugging me. And one by one, I need to deal with them until I get the root cause of what is making me go to this direction. And with a human being, we call it layers of neurosis. You see, Lucy, there is this perfect Lucy that you want us to see. And this is a picture that you want everybody to see, that Lucy is perfect. Even when Lucy is stressed, she'll come and smile. The funny layer. You're creating a perfect picture. Then there's another layer. A few of your friends know you. If I dig Lucy a little bit, there are things which Lucy knows I know, and there are blind spots which you do not know. Like now I may be having an insight that you have anger issues, you have shame issues, but you are not accepting them, but I can see them. Now we start challenging such things. There's that part of denial. And then there's another point now whereby the whole confusion of Lucy goes in. Now this is where the battle of the mind is really working. And there is so much confrontation. If we were to go there, that would be like Ganasaki when it went off and everybody was helter-skelter. And that's what's happening within you. Because these are emotions, they are thoughts, they are ideas, they are buried inside you. You don't want anybody to see. And these are the things that bring so much issues, because you have not been able to peel them off and lay them on the table. Now the moment you start getting in touch with those painful memories, ideas and realities of your life, and you lay them on the table, and now you say, now this is what has been bugging me, this is what has been driving me to suicide. Now can I now deal with them, no matter how painful they are? Maybe someone felt that they were abused, and you have no opportunity to tell this person who abused you how you felt. Write a letter to them, even if, and just read it out loud, even if you not face that person. If you feel your parent died and there was no closure about it, we can practice something called the empty chair. And we put a chair there and tell you, Lucy, assume now this is your father. Maybe he abused you. Maybe he makes you feel disgusting and dirty. Tell it to him as it is. Do not censor it. Do not mind it. Now when you start dealing with these deep issues, now you are able now to start exposing some of these things that may be leading you to depression, anger, resentment, and shame that can push you beyond the baton of seeing any hope. And it's a painful process. Just like when you're peeling an onion, as you go deeper, your eyes start watering in. Your life is the same. As you go peeling in and trying to find those secrets that you have hidden that bug you. Because many people die with so many secrets. These people who commit suicide, they leave notes, and you read those notes and you wonder, why did they not talk about it? And these are the layers of neurosis that we are saying, peel them, let them now see how we can be able to deal with this, because it's not beyond being dealt with. Yes, it's not beyond being dealt with.
Bringing hope. This is GBS TV Africa,
Yes.
and we are continuing with this beautiful discussion on suicide prevention. And with psychologist Mercy here, we are trying to open a certain box. She will be telling us its name, and I am sure by the end, if you are seated there and thinking of ending your life, you will postpone, and not just for today, but until the right time comes. We shall continue after the break.
This is Talk to Rosemary Njage Show. I am your host, Rosemary Njage. This is a place where we host different choirs, different praise and worships, different bands, different worshippers. We are so much blessed.
There is a God in heaven.
He's a God in heaven who answers all of our prayers.
Your talents and your gifting shall open doors.
But I'm going to do this, dedicating it to Christ. And that's how I wrote Nachotaka.
Haja ya moyo wangu, Yesu. Haja ya moyo wangu.
How do you go about composition of your music?
Everything that I sing inakuwaga ni my life.
Take the stage, Lord, and have your way. I'm just a vessel and nothing more. And when you're done, please take your glory, 'cause I'm satisfied to see you glorified. Hallelujah.
Everywhere GBS.
Viewer, the discussion continues. We are in mental health and we are discussing suicide prevention. We have a psychologist in our house who is trying to help us to unmask the masks which could be preventing us being whom we are and putting us into negative ideas, negative thoughts, which would lead to us taking our own lives, or even you or your neighbor take us through. Mercy.
Thank you so much, Lucy.
Yes.
Yes. So we left at opening the Pandora box, as you are calling it, in our small talk.
Yeah.
And I find it as nature, the human nature, it's very difficult for us to really show our vulnerability. We do not want to show people what makes us weak or what are our weak points.
Yeah.
So, and in most cases, when people are going through suicide challenges or suicide issues, let me just shock you a little bit.
Yes.
I'll give you just a small peek of myself. In 2017, I went through a crazy financial situation.
Yes.
And not even many people, some people will be hearing about it for the first time. I had a very beautiful car I used to call Kadudu. And my Kadudu was auctioned.
Auctioned?
Yes, because I was in debt. And the landlord where I was staying decided to kick me out like a dog. And they even had sent some thugs to come in and remove the wheels of my car so that they can just be able to recover the money. So to cut the long story short, me not wanting to expose what was happening, especially to my parents and to those people close to me, these things became so personal and I shut them out. Very few people knew. And even if they knew, they really did not understand what was happening. So I was able to move from where I was staying and went and stayed in Kitengela, some apartment. And believe it or not, Lucy,
Yes.
sometimes I would go at night and I would be thinking, I'm in a financial mess. I don't know how I'm getting out of it. What if I took a rope and I make sure, yes, I told you we were being about suicide, so I'm being vulnerable here.
Yes.
And I make sure it does not reach the ground. By the time I'm jumping from up to maybe that floor, second floor, my neck will have snapped. That was just one scenario. The other one would be, what if I just sleep today? God, I just don't want to wake up tomorrow. Why was all these thoughts
Yes.
going on in my head? It's because I had so much unresolved issues.
Yes.
And I did not find like I could get someone who could understand what I was really going through.
Yes.
And that was back in 2017. And it is only recently when I was talking with my supervisor and we shared and talked about these incidences and we laughed about it.
Yes.
You can see how prolonged it was since I dealt with it. But if there's one thing that kept me going, which also is something that keeps many people who are attempting or trying to commit suicide going, is especially those people who have strong belief in God or strong belief in faith, or people who have a moral image to protect. Hey, what will people say about my family? Because I used to be like, okay, what will people say about me if I commit suicide? What will my parents think about? And then I would ask myself, will God be happy? Is this the kind of faith that I have resorted to God? So some of those arguments, my id and ego and superego was really at work, playing now and trying to make me argue this thing that it is not the end. Surprisingly enough, even when I came out of the financial crisis, at some point, I'll still feel that hopelessness coming in.
Yes.
And telling myself, it's never going to get better. Just get on with it. What if you go to the shower and open the shower and just cut your wrists? Nobody will know, they'll think you're bathing. So that's why I said, their thoughts, their ideas. And if you decide that they are going to pitch camp in your head, they'll really work on you.
Yes.
But the manner in which now you refute them, you challenge them, is what makes you win the war.
Yes.
I'll say something that many people will not agree with me. Much as suicide is a pandemic, and it's something that we are all worried and scared and feel sorry for, the 99.9% of these victims of suicide, it's a personal battle.
Yes.
No matter how much me as a therapist or as a counselor, I come and sit with you, unless you find the will inside you to fight it, it will still overrun you.
Personal responsibility.
And personal acceptance. You must find your way in life, your own way. I cannot help you pave that way. I cannot help you feel good about yourself. I cannot help you start appreciating yourself.
Yes.
Because now the moment I start I start painting it like, oh, Lucy, that is good, and I can see you're walking in the wrong direction, it will not help you. Because I'll start making you now start depending on external locus of evaluation.
Sure.
The moment that appreciation does not come from outside as you're used to, because you have not found strength within yourself to appreciate yourself, to accept yourself, then you start feeling hopeless and lonely, and like life does not matter, nobody cares, nobody worries about me, so even if I commit suicide, nobody cares. But the moment you know it's about me as an individual, it's about my life, I need first to accept Mercy as she is. I need to accept my challenges, my shortcomings, and my strengths, and appreciate myself internally, not externally.
Yes.
Then now I can win this battle, because that is the bone of contention.
Yes.
And it is all here. What you feed your mind with, at some point, it has to come out.
Yes.
Yes. The power of the subconscious mind. You see, that Because you see, what happens is we have the conscious mind, which is now the conscious mind we are talking about right now. We are discussing. This is the conscious mind, we are communicating. And then there is unconscious mind, which you're feeding with what you're communicating right now. Because the information now you are digesting is going to your subconscious. And it's now replaying in you. So even when you're alone, now you start feeding on that. You start feeding on that. Now, the moment you expose your conscious mind to negativity, to defeat, to failure, to killing, to beautifying and magnifying death, then now inside when you're alone, that is what now starts replaying. Death is beautiful. Let's kill ourselves, let's hang ourselves, let us not wake up tomorrow, let's solve our solutions and everything, because it is all an inside battle. And that's why I'm insisting, can you find your own way by first understanding and realizing who Lucy is?
Yes.
Once you know your limitations, once you know your expectation, because sometimes even suicide is a case of unrealistic expectation.
Yes.
You set goals which cannot be achieved. You want to be a millionaire today, and today you want to wake up and become a millionaire. That's an unrealistic expectation that is setting you up for frustration and doom. And then you start saying everything is not working for you. So the whole environment from your unrealistic expectation becomes a doomsday conspiracy for you. So now you want to run away from this situation. And you're finding it as the exit plan.
Yeah.
Yes. So getting, as I said, peeling the onion, the bitter onions, laying down even that bitter truth, the dark secrets that you do not want us to know. Laying them down and saying, this is me, this is how it is, this is how black and white it is. There's no gray area.
Yes.
Now, after I've laid it down here, what works for me, what does not work for me? Am I willing to take this challenge and move ahead with my strong points, my SWOT analysis, my strong points, my weak points, my threats and my advantages?
Yes.
Can I be able to work with that and overcome this hopelessness that I'm feeling? Yes.
Some time back, I did a study on suicide.
Yes.
In a certain facility in Machakos County. If you can watch it, it is in KTN News. The title of the study is 66 Dying Within. If you just go to YouTube and do that, Dying Within, you will find it there. I was in a position to interact with some of the suicide culprits. Most of them were men.
Yes.
And one thing I realized, you, Mercy, wanted to commit suicide because of deaths. Most of them did not mention such things.
Yes.
They mentioned issues of family. They mentioned issues of unsatisfied needs. Sometimes we see teenagers in secondary schools trying to commit suicide.
Yes.
And when you go into them, they will mention of two things. It's either relationship issue, boy-girl relationship, or parental pressure.
Yes.
So it's all about relationships and lack of power. How can you be able to speak about that as a psychologist?
Yes. The Maslow hierarchy of needs, whereby we set our needs from the most important going up to the diminishing of what is really not necessarily important.
Yes, yes.
Because basically, in any layman's language, we have learnt about it. It's the need, the wants, and the needs, want, and maybe something else. I can't really remember the third hierarchy there. And what says, like now, when you're saying that some people want to commit suicide because of unmet needs, there's poverty. Nyandarua, for instance. If you can go, even there's a time BBC did an inside story about Nyandarua, the way people are waking up and they're finding their loved ones dead. Why? Because the poverty level is very high in some areas. And some of these people are feeling that frustration of every day it's a struggle. I cannot be, especially men become the major culprits of suicide. And for your information, they do it in the most crude way rather than women. Majority of men hang themselves. Very rarely will you hear a woman hanging herself.
Yeah.
because they love that crude way of taking out their lives. So like for instance now when you're talking about need, there's that frustration, especially for men, when they feel they cannot provide for their families. They feel that need, that they are useless. They cannot be able to alleviate the people who depend on them for that. So do we have a solution for poverty? Yes.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, as a developing country, as a third world country, majority of our people live below $1 a day. That's a reality that we need to come in terms with. That when someone has the luxury of having 3 to 4 meals a day, there's someone who even doesn't have that luxury. And in our human nature, that is something that can really set you out for frustration. If you're seeing your children are waking up, they don't have food, they don't have medical care, they don't have school fees. These are things that can make or drive a man to the edge.
Yeah.
And some of these things like poverty, how do you alleviate poverty? I don't think I have a solution as to what you can alleviate poverty with. I just know it's something that is there with us, and people find coping mechanisms. Like now there are people who will know that yes, we are living here, but we cannot have that large amount of money, but if I work in a casual labor, or I seek a kibarua somewhere, then I can be able to come and bring that hand to mouth, and days go by. And as I was saying, accepting ourselves, that this is how the situation is. And it does not necessarily mean it's going to be this way permanently. But if I can find a day at a time remedy for handling this situation, that is something that can help you overcome that tragedy of suicide.
For the teenagers,
Yes.
how can they be able to handle it day by day under pressure?
Now this also comes to
Conflict between them,
Yes.
their age, their needs, the special needs that
Yes.
they have, and now the parent, or the two are living in different generations.
the teenager are very interesting people.
Yes.
These are young people now who are starting to discover themselves. Number one, their bodies.
Yes.
Number two, as we say, yeah, because now the girl feels she's hot and I can do whatever I want to do.
Yes.
I can dress anyhow, and you're fighting about that miniskirt she's wearing, and you don't want it. It is a discovery stage. And you see, it is at this autonomy stage that we are trying to say now as a parent, create a balance. Allow this child to discover themselves, but under moderation, and also don't be so harsh when they go experimenting.
Yes.
Because already now, these are people past the age of caning. These are people you can sit down with them and talk with them. And then the other thing is also give them responsibility. You see why we are going so wrong? We are bringing up teenagers who have all the free time. These gadgets, they'll be the end of us when it comes to raising our children. There's so much information, uncensored information. This boy who killed his parents, he said he was having a time with killing Eve. Uncensored information, whereby the media portrays death like something so good. And it's like some form of, as I said, you're feeding, this boy fed his mind with this thing, if at all whatever story he was saying is true.
It's true.
Until now, the reality of what he was feeding himself with started desiring that need of being actualized. So now when it comes to dealing with teenagers, you have to be very sensitive. Number one, do you monitor what they have access to? That is something we have failed at large. We are not able to monitor what is exposed to them. Number two, when it comes to relationships, and this is a very big challenge to African parents, do you sit down with your teenage boy and your teenage girl and tell them, by the way, this boyfriend you're bragging right now about will not be the first one. Initially, we used to be told you kiss so many frogs before you find the prince. But we have come and brought up a generation that believes the first prince I kiss should be the first and the last prince. And so if he leaves me, it's a death situation. That's why you see them jumping from 4 or 5-story building down, because we have not had these conversations, and they have set unrealistic goals also in their relationships, because it is a do or die. No, it's time for them to have fun. So even when you have that boyfriend, maybe you may, I'm not saying he will be a failure, but maybe you may only be setting your eyes there, and maybe God has something bigger set up for you. So setting realistic goals and expectation, having this conversation with our children, drug conversation. They become frustrated when they become hooked up to drugs. And now they cannot even start justifying their ego because they don't have money. So in most cases, when they are facing withdrawals on their own, they can resort to suicide by either overdose of just dying, killing themselves because they shame associated to coming out and accepting this is what they are going through.
Yeah.
Another major issue that is really now catching up with us, and which I feel I should bring out, is, let's call it black and white. Some of us have children now who have turned up to be among the LGBTQ community. Sad reality. But this is something we cannot deny. So the moment your child comes out and tells you this is what's happening with me, your first instinct will be to beat that child. You know? Yes, because this is unheard of in African taboo. No, this cannot be in my family. This cannot happen. And you know, and you, instead of now sitting down with this child and having a candid conversation, you start condemning and pushing this child to the wall, to a point now they find an easy solution out of their misery. You push them to that suicide because already you have shown them there's no way out. And maybe you may never know where they got it out. And maybe it's something that you can talk about and solve it during that time. So as parents, do not ignore your teenagers. Talk with them. Number one, let's have this sex education talk with our children. Don't expect teachers to teach in schools. Late as a parent, sit down with your daughter, sit down with your son. And then if it is relationship, let them have a sit down with you. And also give an example of yourself, and if you have to lie. I had 5 girlfriends and I never married any of them. Show this child there is hope beyond that one field. Relationship. It doesn't have to be that way. And also when it comes also to revisiting issues, again, I mentioned in our last episode that some of these issues that maybe a child was abused and they are not able to deal with that guilt right now, and it is giving them a point, pushing them to that point of wanting to commit suicide. It is something that you can talk about and seek professional help and see how you can help this child with.
Thank you so much, Mercy.
You're welcome.
It was a pleasure having you in this show.
Yes.
Kindly look at that camera, give us your parting shot, and remind us where we can get you. And don't forget to mention 1 or 2 myths concerning suicide. 1 minute, kindly. You
read my mind.
Yes.
I was actually supposed to say that. The myth about suicide, number one, you need to first accept is that suicide is not something just someone wakes up and does. It's something that has been premeditated. The other myth is that when you're talking about suicide and people who have committed suicide, it is not something that cannot, as in, it is not a taboo. Sorry, you take that back. The myth about suicide is that nobody ever knows that someone is committing suicide. The signs and the talk that this person shows and displays to the people around them shows that there is something amiss and there can be a direction going through that point. So every time you hear this person talking about that they want to end their life or they find death amusing or anything, that should tell you that this is something that has already premeditated. The other thing is that I can say that I will not talk about a myth, but I'll say this. If you're finding someone who has been in a depressed state, and all of a sudden this person changes their way, and they want to be all over the place, talking actively and sending signals that indicate that there is a change of attitude towards life, it is time you reach out to that person and have that candid conversation. Do not be scared to reach out to those people. Many of us don't want to talk about suicide. It's something that is a taboo within our society, and it has been termed so, but it is always good to now rise above these taboos and talk about suicide. You can always find me at Hazina Towers, 8th floor, Kenya Institute of Professional Counseling, or you can follow me on my Facebook, The Phoenix Hub, and we can continue having more candid conversations about suicide, and we shall help you whenever you need help. Don't keep quiet, speak out, show up, we will lead you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mercy. It was a pleasure having you in the show. This is GBS TV Africa. We've been talking about suicide prevention, which is all about mental health. Don't keep anything. Speak up and just know your life is your life. Even if you die today, we continue with life. Please don't do it. Don't try it at home. I was your host, Lucy Wansakariuki. Bye-bye.